until we have questions. That way we'll be able to all concentrate on the video. And then just to give you all a sense of what our agenda will be tonight is, tonight is our community meeting, the first of community meetings to discuss the proposed development at 1012 through 1034 Chicago Avenue, which is the west side of Chicago Avenue where the Nissan building is right now. And I'll ask the developers to explain it in a little bit more detail so we all can be centered on that. I'm glad to see the number of people in the community who are joining us. This is part of our process that I insist on with developers, that we have a community meeting early, in the very earliest stages possible. This development right now is in the conceptual stage. The only thing that has been done from the city's standpoint is a zoning analysis, which is really, you need to do that in order to understand how the building fits into our zoning code. So no planned unit development has been submitted. They have not been to DAPR, and they have nothing is before the plan commission at this point. So we are really in the conceptual stage, and this is designed to help all of us understand what's going on and ask questions early. I met with developers sometime last summer. I think it was end of June, when we thought COVID might be done by the end of the summer or something like that. I don't know what we were thinking. It was sunny when we met. And I explained to them, and the staff explained that on Chicago Avenue, we have a strong community with a lot of input in the surrounding area. As many of you know, I live a block off Chicago Avenue. And what we're looking for as a community is not a tall building, a building that fits on the site well and recognizes that it's on both an arterial street that carries 20,000 cars a day, but also a street that we all go to on a regular basis for our unusual shopping and our regular shopping. So it has our dry cleaners and it has our favorite restaurants on it. With that in mind, I think the developers have come back with something that I think is very interesting. I've just had a chance to look at it in more detail today. I saw a concept last summer, but I'm going to turn it over to Stan Bernstein and have him introduce himself and the staff. And what I'd like to do is have them make their presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions. So Stan, how long do you think your presentation will take?
It'll take under 10 minutes. It's we're gonna go through the building program. We'll have Nick Fatikas, who's our zoning and land use attorney. He'll kick it off, and then we'll turn it over to Bill to talk about the design.
Okay, great. So can you introduce your team, yourself included?
My name is Stan Bernstein. I'm with MCZ Development, and Nick Fatikas is here as well. He's our land use and zoning attorney. And Bill Hornoff, who is the lead architect on the project. So Nick, I'll let you take it over.
Before we get started, now that we are official, I do want to remind everyone, this meeting is being recorded. So if you're participating, you are being recorded. We need to let people know that under Illinois law. Okay, go right ahead.
No, thank you very much. Again, my name is Nick Fatikas, and I'm one of the project attorneys at Jim Banks's office, working with MCZ Development on the project at 1012 Chicago Avenue. As was, I think, initially stated, it's the Nissan dealership located on the west side of Chicago Avenue, and it actually abuts the Metro line to the west. It's a 27,642 square foot site, and MCZ is proposing to redevelop the property with a new 5-story mixed-use building that would have a total of 116 residential units and retail space at grade. We worked on, I think this is our second or third true iteration. Again, we do not have an actual plan development application pending. This is all part of that preliminary review process with the community. The current zoning at the property is C1A. And in order to permit our building program, we'd be looking for plan unit development approval, I believe by way of a special use through the Evanston process. Again, we're proposing 116 total residential units. 8 of those residential units would actually be a live-work concept that Bill will talk about in a minute. That'll be located on the first floor. Our building at 5 stories reaches 61 feet 6 inches to the roof line. We think that's generally in keeping with and actually a little bit lower than some of the denser buildings that are located just to the south of us at the Main Street intersection. So it's a little bit lower in terms of context. And in terms of overall massing, the building program is actually at a 3.3 floor area ratio. Under the current zoning, we'd actually be allowed to go to a 4.0, but we don't need all that additional floor area. So we really did try to work on a building that fit the lot, I think was introduced. And then lastly, we are able to locate 64 parking spaces on site, as well as 1 and possibly 2 loading berths. There's 1 dedicated loading berth within the building, and then 1 loading berth that we were looking at accommodating directly from the street. And you know what, it's probably a good time. Let me turn the floor over to Bill Hornoff, the project architect, to take everybody through the plan set, and then we can answer questions from there.
I have one quick question. What is your projected number of affordable housing units to follow under our inclusionary housing ordinance?
So we'll have 12. It's a 10% ratio. We're at 11.6, which rounds up to 12.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead, Bill. Are you going to share your screen? And
I will. Thank you.
Thank
My
you.
name is Bill Rodenhornoff. As mentioned, I'm the architect working on the project. So if you don't mind, I'd like to share the screen and I'll take you through the drawings.
Thank you.
It might be a little hard to see the map here, but as mentioned before, our building is on Chicago Avenue. It abuts the Metro Rail to the west. We are just north of the intersection of Main and Chicago. The property itself is between an existing 1-story retail space and Oscar Iberian rugs to the north of us. On either side, the 1-story retail has a bit of a side yard, about an 8-foot side yard, and the Oscar Iberian space will have parking. So our building will have some room on either side of it. So again, here's Chicago Avenue. The Oscar Iberian retail space is just to the north, and that 1-story retail is just to the south. As mentioned, the building is 5 stories with retail on the first floor. I'm going to get past all the boring plans here. So this plan to the right would be our first floor plan. So Chicago Avenue again, entry into the garage parking, which is all located below grade with on-site loading stall. Mechanical, there's about 5,000 square feet of retail. Sorry, it's lagging a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we're lining Chicago Avenue with, as I mentioned, about 5,000 square feet of retail. The intention there is that can get divided up if needed. So this is something that we're working on. There will be a couple live workspaces that would run along Chicago Avenue and then towards the back. So you can sort of see those blue areas. These would be the live work areas. We foresee this as being artist-like workspace, and there are 8 of them on this level. There'll be some amenity, and residential entry is to the south of the lot. The lower level will have 64 parking spaces. All parking will be located at this level.
Okay.
So that means that floors 2, 3, 4 and 5 will be residential with a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. A total of 116 dwelling units. 8 live work, as I mentioned, on the first floor. There are 16 studios, 81 bedrooms, and the rest, 12 of them are 2 bedrooms. The typical floor plans. There is an occupiable roof deck, meaning amenity space for the residents, a little dog run, and some covered and open space. That's the roof plan, and then just to the next to it is a plan showing that portion of it that's covered.
Okay.
This would be a view along Chicago Avenue. This would be the entry into the loading and garage. We try to consolidate that cut into the lot. We don't have an alley access here, so it has to come off of Chicago Avenue. The elevation itself, I had referred to this before as kind of a village in the sky. That's kind of what we're going for, to sort of break up the apartments into unique little, having their own unique identity. We did mention it's conceptual, right? So you can sort of see the conceptual nature of some of these elevations.
Mhm.
Materials at this point are still being worked out. Of course, masonry at the first floor, and then cement panel or metal panel above. The rear of the building shape is a courtyard. So a elongated C, where the C faces the metro rail. So it creates a courtyard for those residential units at floors 2 up to 5. And you can kind of see a view of this. This is if you were standing up on the metro rail looking into the courtyard here. The building section, as Nick had mentioned, we are 61.5 feet to the roof level, another 74 feet to the very top of the building, which is just the terrace cover for that roof access. The live work space here that has its own courtyard at grade, and then that podium level, that terrace level, which is the courtyard level for the residences, starting at floor 2. And you can kind of see that view here. So this is parking below. This is the retail space along Chicago, the live work, and then the courtyard, and then the residential units. And we have some conceptual views of that. So again, this is kind of looking down onto that village. You can sort of see how the rooftop would work. The idea is that we landscape that. It's a green space. A view looking north of Chicago. The residential entry, again, being to the south, and then the parking being the opposite side. And then that's the view towards the parking area. As mentioned, we are required, I believe, in our initial zoning reviews to provide 2 loading stalls. We're still working this out. We have room for 1. We might be able to do some overlap within the building. In our research, we noticed that there's another project down Chicago that is using the portion of Chicago for loading. I don't want to freak anyone out. It's just a thing we're looking at. But right now, we're currently looking at putting that all on site. And that's all I have. So I'm happy to answer any questions, of course.
Okay. Let's see. If you could unshare your screen, then we'll be able to see people. And unfortunately, so Johanna, can you open up everyone's video now?
Well, if people would like to raise their hands, use the hand raising function, or send a message in chat, I could queue up that way. That might be the easiest way to see people.
Okay, so did everyone hear that? If you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand with that hand, the small little yellow hand, or put your name in the chat, and Johanna will be watching that. I'm sorry I didn't introduce Johanna Neiden, our Community Development Director. Many of you know Johanna, and I apologize, Johanna, for launching the meeting without introducing you. So I will, let's see, do I see a hand? I do. Alan Price, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering what kind of rents you're thinking of charging for these various kinds of apartments you're planning?
Sure, yeah, I could take that. So, as Nick and Bill mentioned, we're still in the conceptual phase, and we're in a point where it's hard to predict with everything going on in the environment, where we're going to be and where we're going to shake out 18 to 24 months from today, where is when we anticipate on delivering these units. So but I can give you a rough range. Where studios, we're looking at range of between 1,200 and 1,500 a month. One bedrooms between 1,600 and 1,900, and two bedrooms between 2,400 and 2,600 a month is kind of where our projections lie currently today.
What about the live workspaces? Do you have any, how big are they?
So those haven't really been developed yet, the concept, the layouts or any of that. So those are, really unique units, really special units that Alderman Nguyen, expressed, that there could be a real need for that in the community. So, I think we're going to work together with the community, with the alderman to really determine who the users will be of those units, and go from there.
Good. Well, good luck. Good luck.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, is there anyone else with a question? Yes. I see Zolt. Am I pronouncing it right? Zolt Zabadi. So ZSOLT SZABADI. Go right ahead. If you're speaking, you're still on mute. Let's see, can you unmute yourself? All right, well, we'll come back to you. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question?
Alderman Nguyen, we have a couple questions in the chat, if I could read them off.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, first question is, why only 64 parking spaces for 116 units? If not all the tenants have cars, leftover spaces could be rented to others in the neighborhood. I can take a stab at that. The required parking for this project would, I don't know if this was mentioned, is 79 parking spaces. This is considered, the site is in a TOD area, meaning that some of the residents and visitors to this site would likely be using public transportation or other means, ride share bikes to get to the site. So a number of years ago, we did a study to determine that there was interest in using public transportation. So we would reduce the number of parking spaces and not have empty parking spaces. I don't know if developers, if you guys want to comment on that as well.
I think that's exactly it. This is envisioned as a transit-oriented development program about a block north of the Main Street intersection, where, again, the station is. On top of it, I think working with the geometry of the site, and Bill could maybe highlight this too, looking at it and configuring the parking spaces, 64 was the most functional use of the space to lay out code compliant parking spaces, and also accommodate, like we talked about, possible overflow for loading off the street. So I think TOD together with the geometry of the site really dictated our parking capacity.
Okay, well, thank you. Johanna, do you have another question?
I do. There was a question, will a traffic study be required as part of the plan development process? And the answer is yes, it is required as part of the plan development process. I think I see Richard Fisher has had his hand up.
Richard, would you like to unmute yourself? Richard, you have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Okay.
All
Richard,
right. I just wanted I just wanted to say hi to everyone. That's it.
Okay. Hello, Richard. How
Hi,
are you?
Richard.
Nice to
How's
see you.
everyone?
We're good. We're good.
Good.
Okay. All right. So now if someone else would like to raise their hand, if not, I have some questions myself.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think a couple of the things have been asked. One of the questions I have is, what types of retail are you imagining that will be there, or are you thinking of? Any of you?
Stan.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I can maybe jump in and then Stan, if you want to follow up. I think we're certainly looking at a mix. We have about 4,000 square feet of divisible space. So whether it's, a one larger, we'll call it almost like an anchor tenant, and then 2 or 3 smaller spaces, we have a little bit of flexibility there. Obviously, right now with COVID and the limitations on retail, it is a little bit of a speculation as to who those tenants will be. But at the very same time, we're optimistic that the live work concept on the back half of the building will help keep the building on the first floor active. Even though it is at the back of the property, there'll still be some level of some energy on the first floor. There also are, there are a handful of restaurants and other retailers in the immediate area. And we'd actually like to partner with the Alderman's office in that regard, trying to find appropriate tenants to fill the space.
Okay. So another question that I have is the sidewalk. The sidewalk along Chicago Avenue, for everyone who's ever walked it, is narrow. I mean, we're an older built community, and we have the train line there that keeps us in check. So, but over the years, one of the things that's been very helpful and important to the community is widening the sidewalk whenever possible, so that you can get a stroller or someone with limited mobility, or simply be able to walk side by side down the sidewalk. So can you talk a little bit about what you're going to do with the sidewalk there? It would be nice to make sure, this gives us the opportunity, I'll let you answer in a second, but this gives us the opportunity to actually have the west side of the street become more pedestrian friendly, which would be really nice. It's a little bit hard to have that with auto dealership uses there, but if you're going to have retail there, that's going to really attract people to that side. So what are you going to do about the sidewalk? That's
Sure.
something I care about a lot.
I can speak to that. And thank you for pointing that out. We are setting the building back varying depths away from the lot line, varying from another 8 to 9 feet to 5 feet, depending on where it is along Chicago Avenue. The residential portion of it, the residential entry sticks out a little bit further, but at the retail areas, it sets back an additionally, as I said, 8'10" actually. So providing a little bit more space in addition to what's currently there on the sidewalk.
So that's 8'10" off the property line?
Off the property line, correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And this is something we're still working on from a design standpoint. What happens is that the third floor level then cantilevers out back to the lot line. So we have a 2-story space that holds that frontage, and that third, fourth, and fifth floor cantilever out. You saw some of those volumes, how they are cantilevering out, kind of providing a raised cover for that portion of the sidewalk at least.
Okay, all right. So another question that I have, unless someone else would like to raise their hand, is, so this is clearly a very contemporary design. And can you talk a little bit about, I don't know that we have a dominant design idea along Chicago Avenue. So can you talk about how you determined to come up with this contemporary design and its relationship to the neighborhood?
Sure. A bit of a complicated question, but I think that in the end, we believe that modern architecture is appropriate for this area. We're a modern firm, so most of our work that we do tends to be more modern as it is. But we felt that the area, that it fits into the area being no more modern or no less modern than some of the other buildings that are along Chicago Avenue. And then, in some way, it maybe adds to the vitality of that portion of the area that, that modern, in my opinion, as a dumb architect, that, modern architecture expresses a hope of the future. And, that's what we're trying to do with the building.
Mhm. Good. Okay. So, I mean, I'm just a lawyer, so I am not an architect. But I've certainly seen many buildings go up here in Evanston, and some of our modern buildings, I think have been really successful. The southeast corner of Maine and Chicago is the last one that we had that.
Yeah.
And I
nice
think
building.
in particularly what made that building successful was the very high quality materials that were used in it. And I that's something that I and the community care a lot about, because all you have to do is go kitty corner from that and you see a building
Yes.
that really, in my mind, and I apologize to anyone who's on this call who lives there, because I know it's very nice space indoors, but from the exterior, that building it fails. I mean, it really is not attractive at all. So talk to us a little bit more about the types of materials and what color it might be and what you're thinking about.
Well, you saw in the images, again, can I just talk about the conceptual stage that we're at here?
Go right ahead. And
that-
I'm being told that we have a bunch of questions in the chat. So go ahead, go back to
Okay.
the conceptual stage.
So yeah, the materials, to be quite honest, we're still working out. So I think that this is something that you guys will all get a chance to weigh in on this as this becomes more defined in the future. But right now, you can sort of see the direction it's going. There's glass, there'll be lighter colors at this point, but that's something we're still working on.
Okay, so Johanna has a number of questions to read to us from the chat.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Johanna. Oh, you're on mute, Johanna.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I feel like a little bit of a radio DJ right now with all the callers lighting up. So this is very exciting. A couple questions about process have come through, so I'm just going to walk through what the process would look like here. So this, in city terms, the process has barely started at this point. The development team has submitted what is called a zone, their plans, what they just showed you, and staff has reviewed for compliance with the underlying zoning. And we provide the developer something called a zoning analysis that says, you are not compliant, you are compliant, you are not compliant. And then they make decisions about which parts they're going to respond to and how they're going to respond to them. And then they prepare, this is considered a planned development, given its size, its mix of uses, and a number of other factors. They will submit a planned development application, which has probably all the information that you could ever want to know about a development. The entire floor plans, traffic study, market analysis work, all engineering, everything that you could possibly imagine that goes into a development, sort of bid drawings go into that document. And that document is then submitted to the community development department. And the staff that I work with will disseminate it to several other departments, public works, the fire department, health, if there's any kind of restaurant space. All these different staff and different departments will review the documents and provide a comment letter back to the developer. And then the developer will look at the comments and say, oh, I didn't realize I had to put the water service here, or I didn't realize I had to deal with this particular aspect of traffic or pedestrian access, or oh, I didn't know about these plans or these underground utilities. And so we work through those comments, usually one or two rounds of that. And then the developers provide us an updated application, at which time we will schedule something called Design and Project Review Committee. And that's a staff meeting that occurs almost every Wednesday at 2:30 over Zoom now. And we will review the proposed plan development and have more discussions that we've been having in a comment letter. And the comment letter is included in the package of materials that goes into the DAPR committee. And we review, ask questions, review a little bit more, and then staff makes a recommendation to the plan commission based on that meeting. And sometimes those meetings, sometimes we do it all in one meeting, sometimes we do it in two meetings. So that then goes to the plan commission. The plan commission is a recommending body that reviews the standards for a special use in a plan development against our zoning code in the context of our comprehensive plan. and they will review it. And at both of those meetings, at the design and project review, as well as the planning commission, the public is able to speak and provide comments and ask any questions. From the planning commission can either recommend to the city planning and development committee to city council, recommend denial of the application for special use and plan development. They can do either, but they can't stop a development. They can only make a recommendation for or against. So then the planning and development committee of the city council, which is made up of 7 of 9 current sitting aldermen, will review it and take public comment and ask the developer questions and review the proposed development and make a recommendation to the full city council to approve the ordinance that would ultimately allow the development to move forward. So that's the process there. And then there's a question about traffic in terms of interrupting. What would then happen in construction activity? What would then happen once if the development was approved? We would then go through. It would usually take, and developers cite the number of months it would take you to pull bid drawings together or construction drawings that we would then review and eventually issue a permit. We would also require something called a construction management plan. And for any large developments, even some small ones, we require what's called a construction management plan. So we know where all of the people that come to the site every day will park, where the loading and where the trucks will go when they come bring the concrete and other materials, when they can go there, who the point of contact is, all of the things, a schedule of activities, everything that will possibly happen on the site. When the parking lane will disappear because they'll need that for staging, and because all those things get laid out in that plan, and that plan is also available. And we share with city council members before we finalize it, just to get any additional local feedback. Sometimes aldermen will take them to ward meetings just to review with community members. And given the nature of this neighborhood, we usually, particularly for Alderman Wynn's ward, we make sure that we have really scrubbed it because there's not much room to move, particularly at this site. So we would make sure that occurred. And then often developers will create a project website to keep informed about what's going on. The Maine in Chicago did something like that, just so residents knew what was that loud noise, or when was this particular truck going to come, because they're tight sites. That was one of the things that we did there. So in terms of questions, let's see. And that usually, and then construction-wise, maybe developers, how long do you think a building of this type would take? Is it an 18-month build?
Yeah, this is between 14 and 18 months. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. Question. Got that one. A question of interested in LEED status. This would have to be we have a green building ordinance. This would have to be a LEED Silver certified building. That is part of our green building ordinance. So that answers that. And if they want to do more, that would be considered a public benefit. Question, are the 64 parking spaces for both residents and retail visitors? That is correct. They are for both. And that calculation of 79 required, that is a calculation for both residential and for commercial. Comment to remind you that the lot, it abuts the CTA and not the Metro, even though the Metro and the CTA run parallel. And then maybe somebody would like to comment on, does Evanston need more housing in this price range? Maybe talked about any market work you've done.
If we've done any market research, is that the question, Joanna?
The question is, do you see a need for this this range of prices for this type of housing?
Yeah. I mean, this is predominantly what we do is multifamily development in Chicago and infill areas. In Evanston, we've done some smaller stuff, nothing this large, but yeah, we've over the last 6 to 12 months, we've been doing market research in and around that area, and we do see a need for it. And we have found that, when we're ready to deliver in that 18 to 24 month period, that the market will be able to, will hopefully be back open, and people want to be in Evanston, and a lot of great things about Evanston. So
Okay. Johanna, do we have
All
more
right.
questions?
We do. Is there a plan to convert these units from apartment to condo at some point?
No, we don't have a plan of that.
Mhm. I have a question too. So on the one of the drawings that you showed so you described it, Bill, as an open sea, a sea facing the rail lines.
Right.
But at the 5th floor level, it looks as though you have almost like it's not a bridge, but some kind of panel all the way across. Was I reading that accurately?
It's a window. So what it basically is a metaphorical window. So
Okay.
there is a spandrel panel that runs and ties the two end of those Cs together, creating a window looking out for those residents in the courtyard, looking out beyond the rail.
Okay, so that's architectural, not structural, or is it
Correct.
also structural?
Right. So it's architectural, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. It was very interesting. Johanna, more questions?
More questions. Is there a budget targeted for the rental rates on the retail and the live work?
Stan, you're muted there.
Yeah, so, we're still, retail is so uncertain in this environment that we're in right now that it's hard to comment on that. It's really hard to know where we're going to be in 2 years from now.
Mhm. Okay,
So,
all right, Johanna, next question.
Does the developer plan to hold the property for a long-term period of time?
yeah, so, I mean, we're predominantly long-term real estate holders. We own pretty sizable portfolio in Chicago and in Illinois and in the Midwest. And absolutely, that's our bread and butter. That's what we do.
All right. Then there was an ask to describe the live work units a bit more because there's little exterior exposure for them.
I can talk to that. For two of the units, they're on Chicago Avenue. And as I said, we're sort of seeing this as artist space. So that can be anything from performance to visual arts. The best units, in my opinion, in the entire building are those 6 live work at the back. They have their own private courtyards that is outdoor space, but it's their own little space. So I would say it's for artists who don't want to be around anybody. Those would be great spaces for them.
And then how do those people access that?
So through the first floor, there is,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Through the first floor, there is access. They'll enter the building much like any other resident would through that residential entry that's at the south of the building.
Okay.
There's through the lobby, and then they'll have doorway access along that hall running right behind the retail area.
Okay, I understand. Okay. Johanna, do we have additional questions?
There are 12 affordable units. How are they integrated into the building? I think that means where will they be located and how will they be programmed? And then how will you make people aware that they are available? So I can take the second part of that question first. So the city contracts with a group called Community Partners for Affordable Housing, and they manage a centralized waiting list. So people can have added their names to this waiting list. People who are Evanston residents who are looking for affordable housing. And then as the units come up online, and you can go to CPA's website, CPAH's website, and you can see that there's a couple of units in Evanston available right now that were the on-site affordable housing units. And so they're available. Their tenants are screened to meet income requirements, and then they have to meet tenant leasing requirements for individual property owners as well. So that's the process by which we work to make sure those units are not rented based on the ability of each property owner, but rather managing it through a larger process with that the city has some information on. And then staff provides a report to City Council once or twice a year on the progress and the status of those affordable units. So why don't, before I go to the next question, if someone can comment on how the units are integrated. I think most developments generally just have the units available and then they lease them versus saying this is affordable unit A. So maybe you can comment on what you're thinking at this point, even though I know it's very early.
Yeah, again, this is Nick Fatikas. In the past, in my experience, we've worked with the Department of Planning to identify the units and have a representative mix of the makeup of the building. So in this case, I think the predominant number of affordable units would be of the 1-bedroom size. My guess is we'd also be required at least 1 2-bedroom unit among the mix of the 12 units that are affordable.
And I think the question is also asking, there is no special part of the building, and we don't permit this in Evanston. You
No.
can't designate a portion of the building as the affordable units. That's not permissible in Evanston. So these are integrated throughout the building, and they are similar to the other units in the building.
That's right.
Same finish level, same everything. Yeah, they're going to be identical units to all of them. That's right.
Yeah. Joanna, next question.
All right. This might have been answered already because I missed this one earlier. Is the building being built right up to the lot line along Chicago Avenue?
It's not. It's being set back varying dimensions. At minimum 5 feet from the lot line, up to 8'10". It's also worth noting that at the second floor, the building is being set back 5 feet on either side of the building as well, off the lot line.
Okay, and then I think I addressed this earlier. Will construction interfere with traffic on Chicago Avenue? I think the short answer is to some degree, yes, it will. But we work to make sure Chicago Avenue is a main north-south arterial, so we would work to maintain traffic in both directions at all times, particularly because this is a route for fire trucks and other emergency service vehicles. So the two-way traffic in both directions would be maintained, as well as greenleaf access, two-way greenleaf access as well. So though it wouldn't anticipate not necessarily having parking on those lanes, but there would be traffic in both directions. Let's see, buildings on the southeast corner of Main and Chicago are not full. What will distinguish your building to enable you to fill up?
Great modern architecture.
And I think
Yeah.
generally, it's a new building, transit-oriented development. We think our price points, the projections are still very conceptual. I think the projections are in line to be fully leased. And I think we're making a significant investment, or at least planning to make a significant investment. Optimistic that we'll be able to sell the product that we're building.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see. Is MCZ working on or have they completed any other projects in Evanston?
So yes, we've done a lot of smaller scale projects, some historic rehabs, some new construction, single family homes, but nothing of this scale in Evanston. We do have about 250 units currently under development in the city of Chicago. So we are extremely active.
Mhm. Next question, Johanna.
Okay, so will parking on Lee Street become permit parking?
I'd say this is a little too early to say at this point. Generally, we don't make, generally with new buildings, we do not permit the residential parkers from the building to become members of the parking district, the street parking district around it. We expect that the parking in the building will accommodate the parking. And so that permits are not permitted, are not issued to people, residential owner or dwellers in the building. So it's a little too early to tell. It likely that because that's commercial parking that's on Lee Street, and this is adding more retail, that we would want to keep that as commercial parking, retail parking. But it is very early.
And then there was a question about which variances are being sought for this development. We're still, I would comment, we're still very early on in terms of if there's site development allowances or other variances from requirements requested. Right now, the developer is in compliance with under SAR and I think bulk requirements. Just looking at the zoning analysis, we've talked about loading docks. Those are required, 2 are required, and they commented on that. So those are the things that we're starting to work through. So I don't want to give anyone an impression that we know exactly what is deviating from the zoning code, but rather that this is still a work in progress. But there are, as noted, the request for parking spaces versus the requirement, little things like that are still sort of on the drawing board.
But at this point, there isn't a height variance requested, and there's not a floor area ratio requested.
Nor is there
That
a
is
dwelling
correct.
unit count request either. I think that under the zoning ordinance, we could do 133 dwelling units, and we are at 116 here, I believe.
Mhm. Okay.
And I think there were just a couple more. Okay, so live workspaces are going to have their yards facing the L.
The grassy knoll of the L, yes.
And then if retail customers park on Lee Street, they would have to walk down to Main, Chicago, and cross the street there, but people will probably jaywalk at Lee and Chicago. That was a comment. And then would trash trucks need to back up onto Chicago Avenue in order to access the loading area? So that's a great question. This is a perfect example of something that gets worked out in Design and Project Review Committee and the comment process. The city staff reviews all these things. So these are the sorts of things we have our Public Works team review this. It's always fun to go through these, especially when it snows. When it snows, because we're all then hyper aware of making sure that developments have a snow plan, because snow has to go someplace if you have open areas, off parking decks and other things. So trash and snow are often overlooked, but not by the City of Evanston staff. We make sure that developers have a plan, and it's on the record in the minutes. So when we come to a big snowstorm later at a later date, we have a record of where the plans were to put the snow before the building was even built. So those are the kinds of things that are really important to work out up front, and that we make sure that we have it on record so everybody knows how it's going to be handled.
Good.
And I think if I missed, there are so many questions and comments. If I missed somebody's question, if they could just put it back in the comments, that would be great. Otherwise, I don't see any new questions at this point.
I do have a question that I'm reading, Johanna. It's with all the open storefronts currently open on Chicago Avenue and on Main Street, what is the city's plan for filling these open spaces along with the proposed new retail spaces for this building? That is a good question. And we are, obviously, COVID has taken its toll on the main dumpster mile, as well as other commercial districts in Evanston. I think the main dumpster mile has done a little bit better than we might have hoped. And right now we are waiting to see what Evanston will receive under the American Recovery Act. We understand that it's going to be fairly generous, and we're going to use every tool that we have in our toolkit to promote ourselves and try and refill these storefronts. I think one of the best things that we are able to show is that even through the pandemic along the main Dempster Mile, most of our businesses are making it. And that will attract more businesses to come back to that area. So at this point, because of COVID, it's very hard to predict, but we're hoping that when COVID is over, that the main Dempster Mile will be as attractive to people, to retailers as it was before. Johanna, do you have another question?
One just came in. With the new building projected on Main where Vogue is, will this area have too many retail stores and rentals?
I think that we don't know the answer to that. It's a good question. I think that we'll see. There are a variety of different sizes of retail, and over time, generally speaking, the main Dempster Mile has been able to fill them. So these are going to be new spaces, and someone will have the ability to reshape them. I think the rents will have to meet the market in order for the spaces to fill, and we really do want them to fill.
We do also.
I would just add that when we met when we were in person at the Auto Barn almost 2 years ago now.
Years ago,
I think there was
April 3rd.
April 3rd. Okay, almost 2 years ago
Wow.
to the day. We talked a lot about neighborhood serving retail and other things that people could walk to. So that was, I think, something that people had a keen eye to and wanted to see more of. And I think there's this concept of the 15-minute city where people can get almost everything they need within 15 minutes of their home or where they live. And as people have moved to these more compact spaces, that certainly is something that we're seeing more people want to have, which I think is why the main Dempster Mile has done relatively well in this, because we do have a more compact urban environment that people are comfortable walking to and can do their business and feel comfortable because they also know their shop owners and they've been maintaining proper protocols, and people will go into those spaces and follow the rules and be safe.
But I do think the question is a good one, because the spaces that have been the most difficult to fill over the last few years are the spaces in the new building at the corner of Main Chicago. And those are the spaces that that property owner has had a difficult time filling. And so I think the concern about a new space is a good one. And I would urge you to really make the rent meet the market and not have empty space. Better to fill it. And an example of this is Who's Your Mama Pie, which is further down Chicago Avenue in the Amley building. The Amley, the property owner at Amley gave Who's Your Mama Pie a very good rent because they knew how important it was to get that Who's Your Mama there and Dollop there. And it has proved to be very successful. And then it before the pandemic, that retail was doing fairly well. But they sparked that off with Who's Your Mama Pie and Dollop. What's next, Johanna?
There are no other questions that I'm seeing at this point. So if anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask.
Anyone else? Of course, anyone, if you have comments, I would like to hear them. So please send them to me at my city email address, which is mwynne@cityofevanston.org. Or you can give me a call, 847-840-7751. Probably sending me an email is probably a little bit faster and easier. But I do welcome hearing from people about this. This isn't certainly this is only the first meeting and of this process, and there will be other community meetings and public meetings on this as we go forward. So, but right now would be a good time to provide comments, and they are welcome. So I really would like to hear from everyone. I'm looking at all the names here, and many of you I know. So, and I know you're not shy. So please provide provide your best thoughts or comments or questions. Is there?
And there's opportunity for public comment at all the steps. So design and project review, plan commission, planning and development committee, and city council. So there's opportunities all along the way as well.
So that's at least 4, right, Joanna? Probably more than that. At the very least, we have 4 opportunities here. So that's a little bit of a that's a warning and a preparation and to the development staff here that we take it seriously here in Evanston. So we have a very involved public. I used to say there were people I knew who had their own copy of the zoning code or it was online. So, and they knew it. So people
better than us, probably.
Yeah, well, you'll learn it. You'll learn it. So, I mean, this is a community that cares really deeply about what gets developed here and what our environment is like. And so we'd like to have a successful development on both sides because that helps us and that helps you. But without a battle would be preferable. Yep. Yeah.
No, we've done business in many years in Evanston. We love it. There's so much appeal for us there, and it's just all been positive so far. So we've worked with all of your staff, with Michael and Melissa, and so it's been great. It's been great.
Okay. All right. So Johanna, has anything else appeared in the chat?
There was a question about the presentation being shared, and so the recording of this meeting and the presentation will be posted on the city's website. I provided the link, but it's under proposed plan developments. We have a page on the city's website that tracks all the pending developments, and that is where we will. I should also mention the design and project review committee and some other pre-development work that was done 2 years ago. All that information is available on that page as well that I linked to.
Okay, thank you
So
very
no
much.
other questions have come in.
Okay. Well, we're right at the hour mark, and I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you to our development team there for your presentation, and we will be talking and meeting again. So thank you for making this presentation to the community, and we will probably be sending you more questions from the community and as they come forward for our response.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Nyden as well.
Thank you, Joanna.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night. Bye.